action. So Treasury yields have stabilized, back down to 164 or so on the 10-year. We've seen that a few days in a row now. It seems like stocks took a little bit of a dip. Anything in there in that testimony that would cause a sell-off?
Just before we came on, I was trying to do the tick by tick and see if it was something that he or she said, and I couldn't really. He was talking a little bit about the communication of possibly reducing QE down the road. It was kind of a benign comment, talking a little bit more about climate change when the market started to go down about 120 in the afternoon. But it looks like about half of this 18-point drop in the S&P has come after they were done around 250 this afternoon. I can't think of any particular reason that I could link it back to.
Steve, thanks so much for that. We're just fractionally off the lows, down 210 on the Dow. The low was 260 about 15 minutes ago. Up next, a new vaccine controversy. Shares of AstraZeneca getting hit today over concerns about newly released trial data. We'll speak with a member of the FDA's Vaccine Advisory Committee about that data and what it means for future authorization. You're watching Closing Bell on CNBC.
Just off session lows, Dow down 235, 49 minutes left of trading. Time now for a coronavirus tracker. Promising developments on the treatment front today. Regeneron and Roche's antibody cocktail was shown to cut COVID hospitalizations and deaths by 70%. That's according to new phase 3 trial data. And Pfizer, which already successfully developed the first authorized COVID vaccine in the U.S., just announced it has started an early-stage trial for an oral COVID-19 antiviral therapy. Pfizer says the drug showed, quote, potent activity against COVID in lab studies. Meantime, New York is expanding its vaccine eligibility. Now anyone over 50 years old can get a vaccine, just a few weeks after the state had lowered the eligibility age to 60 years or older. Texas, Wilfred, goes to anyone above 16 next week. Amazing the progress we've seen in the year.
Not quite down to our age yet, but we're getting there. We're getting there. Sticking with the virus, shares of AstraZeneca are moving lower today amid concerns over its new vaccine trial data. Meg Terrell's got the latest on this roller coaster ride for this vaccine, Meg.
It really is, Wolf. I think saga might be the best word I've seen to describe what's been happening with AstraZeneca's vaccine. Here's the latest. Remember yesterday, we reported that the much-anticipated phase 3 trial in the U.S. of AstraZeneca's vaccine showed 79% efficacy, which was higher than many people expected. Then, overnight, the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, Dr. Fauci's institute, said the oversight board overseeing that trial had sent it a letter expressing concern about, quote, outdated information pertaining to the efficacy data there. Importantly, not the safety. And this morning, AstraZeneca issued a statement saying that those data had been from an interim look taken February 17th, and that they'll issue a primary analysis within 48 hours. Now, this is just a bizarre turn of events. Dr. Fauci, in an interview with Stat, saying, quote, I was sort of stunned having seen that letter from the oversight board. He said, we could not just let it go unanswered. And that is why they put out that statement last night. Now, the Washington Post reports it obtained some of the information in that letter, saying that the oversight board said the company chose to use outdated, potentially misleading data on the efficacy, and that in fact, with more updated information, it may be closer to 69 to 74% versus the 79% reported, guys. So according to AstraZeneca's statement, within 2 days, we are going to see their primary analysis here, but clearly not good optics for a vaccine going through the process here in the U.S., and which has been, of course, facing some challenges overseas as well. Guys?
Yeah, just the latest in a series of missteps. Meg, thank you. Meg Terrell. For more, let's bring Dr. Opher Levy. He is a voting member of the FDA's Vaccine Advisory Committee. Dr. Levy, thank you for joining us on Closing Bell. Good to have you.
A pleasure to be here.
Have you ever seen anything like this?
Quite frankly, I have not. These are an unusual turn of events, as you've just summarized. It's unusual to have NIH, NIAID, call out a sponsor, in this case AstraZeneca, about potentially using outdated information, calling them out in public, and then the company having to rapidly reissue a more updated analysis. It is unusual.
My other question, I guess, is just why the FDA needs to approve this drug. And I know more than 70 countries have already approved. It's being used in the UK and Europe and India and many other places. But we've got 3 approved vaccines, more supply coming online. Novavax's data looks good. Why at the FDA do we need the AstraZeneca vaccine? Why is it such a priority that we get this U.S. data and this shot approved?
Well, thank you for that. Let's be clear. I mean, this pandemic is far from over. You've highlighted some very positive developments, and we'd love to see that trend continue. But globally, there's a very serious need for more vaccines and more vaccine supply. And of course, as a member of the advisory committee and ad hoc voting member, we bring an open mind to the process. We don't convene with the agenda that we have to vote in favor of an authorization. We look at all the information about safety and efficacy, and vaccines are something you give to healthy people, so they better be safe. And then we give an advisory vote, and in the end, FDA decides, but we advise them. So it's not like we're gathered with the agenda that we must vote in favor. That said, there are some attractive features about this vaccines with all the irregularities you highlight. It doesn't require deep freezing, makes it more practical for rural areas, right? And there does seem to be evidence that it's effective. I'll keep an open mind. I'll wait for the final version of the briefing documents, are most up to date, but that's what's being reported, and it's being reported that there's safety there. But again, I'll keep an open mind, and I'll judge the briefing report once it's released.
Dr. Levy, regardless of sort of what comes out in terms of whether there was inaccuracies on the latest submission from AstraZeneca or not, how rare is it for an organization like the NIAID to be public about their concerns in the way that they were this morning? I ask, of course, because clearly there are already questions about the safety and efficacy of this vaccine, whether they are legitimate questions or not, particularly in Europe and the sort of trust in the vaccine is very low in some of those countries already. Should they have taken that into account and just said to people like you, beware of this, make sure you read into these details, but not make a public statement like this until you have absolute definitive answers?
Yeah, what you imply seems like the wise course from where I'm sitting. Again, I'm not aware of the highly unusual turn of events over the past day with NIAID calling the company out, the sponsor out. I'm not aware of a similar situation in the past. So this is very unusual. And I'm sure that people at AstraZeneca now are reflecting on how they might do this better moving forward.
Just to follow up on that, I mean, again, even if there's an error there and the actual percentage efficacy should be lower than was reported initially yesterday, overall, is this vaccine safe? Is this vaccine effective? Way more so than perhaps any of us would have dreamt 6 months ago. And therefore, should that have been the only headline that has been reported until a final decision is made?
Yeah, again, I have to suspend an opinion until I see the briefing documents, the final briefing documents. And as you know, Wilfred, we have an excellent process here in the U.S. Those briefing documents are eventually made public, so any American can download them and look at the same information I will look at and the other committees members will look at. And once they're available with the most up-to-date analysis, then I will form my opinion on safety and efficacy, and it'll be based on that opinion that I will vote, and a full day of public deliberation, right? So I've not yet received the updated documents. They're not even available yet, as you highlight, and so I am bringing an open mind, and I'm not assuming one thing or the other. It is potentially an important vaccine, and I'd like to see what the final briefing documents look like.
So AstraZeneca has done a few of these trials now, along with Oxford University, and we've talked to folks there about some of the early ones in the UK. Why is it important, Dr. Levy, that for the FDA, this trial be done in the US? Is that a requirement that all vaccines passed here have to have trials done in this country?
It's certainly something that's strongly preferred by FDA. Whether it's elevated to a requirement, technically, I don't know. But, our population may be different in a number of ways from the populations of other countries, both genetically and what we call epigenetically. In other words, things that modify our risks. We have a different diet, different weather, all sorts of things affect an immune response. So there's a long history in vaccinology that vaccines given in one part of the world might not perform the same way as they might perform in another part of the world. I direct the Precision Vaccines program at Boston Children's Hospital, and that's one of the themes of our research.
Finally, Dr. Levy, do you expect a decision and the final documents quickly in order to perhaps sort of stem the ongoing distrust in this vaccine, if that is indeed a warranted course of action to carry out?
Well, this sponsor, in this case AstraZeneca, will have to go through the same process any other sponsor like Pfizer, Moderna, and J&J had to go through. They're in communication with FDA, and when FDA judges that the timing is right, they will alert the committee members, and then eventually the date for any potential meeting to consider voting to advise on emergency use authorization will be set by FDA and announced through the federal website.
When you guys debate this, and if it does get presented to you for a vote on whether you would recommend this vaccine and others, are you going to be looking at it relative to what's already been approved, J&J, Moderna, Pfizer, in terms of efficacy and safety, or does it get sort of a fresh slate because we've got new mutations and it's not necessarily apples to apples?
Right. Typically, I don't know what the exact question they will have us vote on, but typically the question will be, does the evidence presented support the safety and efficacy of the product? They won't necessarily be asking us, how does it compare to another product? Because the studies weren't designed to answer that. To really know how the products compare, of course, you'd have to do a head-to-head trial, and that hasn't been done for any of these vaccines. So I think they're going to, I speculate that they will ask us about the safety and efficacy of this particular AstraZeneca product if and when we convene. I will also point out that the committee members are not allowed to discuss the topic privately, offline with each other. All of our deliberations are public. I think that's a really good process we have here in the United States.
Yeah, no, we're glued to it. And this was very revealing. Dr. Opher Levy, thank you for giving us a peek into how it's done. We appreciate it.
A Pleasure. Thank you.
38 minutes left before the close. Market's been losing steam here, and we're looking at new session lows. Dow's now down 300 points. That is the low. S&P 500 down 3/4. The only sectors being bid right now are defensives like utilities and staples. The NASDAQ down 1%, and the small cap Russell 2000 getting hit hard, down 3.5%. Sell-off really picking up steam. After the break, how do consumers plan to spend money during the great reopening? That's the question UBS asked in a new survey, and the results may not be what you'd expect. We're going to discuss next. Plus, it's the stock that drew the attention of Wall Street and the entire world.
Did you discuss GameStop?
GameStop. I put all my money in GameStop.
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 We've seen what's happening in GameStop.
GameStop. GameStop.
GameStop.
This retail phenomenon is here to stay.
Never seen anything like it. Coming up, GameStop's first earnings report since the retail trading mania that sent the stock rocketing higher. It is the earnings event of the season in little over 37 minutes. We'll be right back.
Very positive for the economy, and everyone sort of unleashes this excess saving. Just on those stocks today, by the way, Jim Cramer 7 minutes ago, that crude itself is weighing on some of these bullish U.S. economy stocks, even if there's no actual causal link between the two. In fact, you could argue with some of them it should be a negative correlation, but hard when oil is down 6.5% for some of these stocks that have exposure to more U.S. cyclical factors to be up today. Still ahead, 2021 has been the year of GameStop. The stock up 900% after a furious retail-fueled rally. In just a few minutes, we'll get the company's first earnings report since the Reddit frenzy began. And before those numbers come out, we'll speak with the CEO of investing platform Stash, which bills itself as an anti-day trading alternative, about the rise of the retail trader. As we hit the break, here's a check-in on bond yields. Yields are low today, 163 on the 10-year, so a decent-sized pullback as we speak. Welcome back. The selling just accelerating moments ago. We got down 340, tiny bounce for a moment, and now down 330 again on the Dow, so over 1%. S&P down 0.9%, NASDAQ down just more than 1%. The Russell 2000 small caps down 3.7% as we stand. Meantime, it's officially 1 year since the market's COVID bottom, and the Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ have seen stellar returns, the NASDAQ nearly doubling. Here's a look at the biggest 52-week winners in the Dow. Goldman Sachs, Caterpillar, Dowing, Boeing, Disney, and Nike, all up more than 100%, Sarah.
30 minutes left to go, and as Wilfred said, we are selling off here into the close. Crude oil down, as Wilfred and Kramer were mentioning on Twitter, big factor there. It's all the cyclical reopening plays getting hit hard, perhaps on longer lockdowns out of Europe. That's really hurting the airlines and travel companies. NASDAQ's down 1%. There are some pockets of strength, though, in the utilities and consumer staples, real estate, all the defensive groups. It's been about a month now since GameStop board member Ryan Cohen tweeted this infamous picture, remember, of the McDonald's ice cream cone that sent the stock on a tear, presumably. Seemed like a catalyst. Why not? The stock is up more than 300% since that tweet, 900% on the year. We are counting you down to the results. GameStop's first earnings since this whole Reddit retail trading frenzy. It's coming up at the top of the hour. But up next, we're going to discuss the big run and the rise of retail investing with the CEO of investing platform Stash, a Robinhood competitor. Closing Bell will be right back.